The government has just told you, in so many words, that it thinks you're too scared to invest. That's the real reason they're cutting the cash ISA limit. From April next year in 2027, if you're under 65, your annual cash ISA allowance drops from £20,000 to £12,000. £8,000 of tax-free allowance every single year that you can no longer put into cash savings. One thing worth knowing, you can't carry that allowance forward. Whatever you do not use by the 5th of April each year is gone. There's no rolling over to the next year. This tax year, the one we're in right now, is the last full year at that higher limit. I want to make sure you know exactly what's changing, why the government is doing it, and how to think about what it means for you. I'm on a journey to reach financial independence by the age of 55, and a big part of that is getting to grips with how the tax wrappers available to us in the UK actually work. The ISA, the SIP, the lifetime ISA, and how to use them as efficiently as possible. When a rule this significant changes, I think it's worth slowing down and walking through it properly. There's a lot of noise around this one. Some people are furious, some people think it's the right call. And I think both camps probably have a point. I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. But what I can do is walk you through exactly what's changing, what the data says, and how I'm personally thinking about it. Then you can make up your own mind. Let's start with the basics because some of you will be newer to this. An ISA, or an individual savings account, is a tax wrapper. Think of it like a box that you put your money into, and whilst it's in that box, HMRC can't touch the growth or interest. No income tax on the interest, no capital gains when you sell any investments made inside of it. The money you put in has already been taxed for your income, but everything it earns after that is yours to keep. There are a few different types of ISA. A cash ISA is the simplest. It works like a regular savings account, but sheltered from tax. You deposit money, it earns interest, and that interest is yours tax-free. The current annual ISA allowance is £20,000. That's the maximum you can put across all of your ISAs in a single tax year, April to April. Now, you can split that however you like, all into cash, all into investments, or a mixture of the two. But the total across all ISA types can't exceed £20,000. Now, most of us do have a personal savings allowance for our regular income tax. Basic rate taxpayers get £1,000 of interest tax-free per year, whilst higher rate taxpayers get £500. But with saving rates having been pretty decent recently, and with larger balances earning more, that allowance can disappear quite quickly. That's where the cash ISA earns its keep. There's no cap on it how much interest you can earn inside of it tax-free. According to official HMRC statistics published in September 2025, there was around £360 billion held in cash ISAs in the UK at the end of the 23-24 tax year. Industry data put that figure at over £420 billion by the end of 2025. That's not a niche product. That's where most people in this country have been putting their long-term savings for decades. Right, let's go through this carefully because there are a few moving parts. From the 6th of April 2027, if you're under 65, your annual cash ISA allowance drops from £20,000 to £12,000. The overall ISA allowance, the £20,000 we spoke of before, stays the same, at least until April 2031 as far as we know. So the remaining £8,000 would need to go somewhere else, into a different ISA type. A stocks and shares ISA, for example, which is a wrapper that holds investments like funds and shares rather than cash savings. If you're 65 or over, however, you're completely unaffected. You get to keep the full £20,000 cash ISA allowance, and to be precise, this is a fixed age threshold of 65. It's not linked to the state pension, which, for context, is currently in a phased rise from 66 to 67. If you turn 65 before the 6th of April 2027, you're in the exempt group regardless of what happens to any state pension changes. A few more details worth knowing. Firstly, existing cash ISA balances are completely unaffected. Money you've already saved in a cash ISA stays there, growing tax-free with no cap on the balance. Just a cap on new deposits each year. So, for example, if you've built up £80,000 in cash ISAs over the years, that sits exactly where it is. Secondly, transfers. From April 2027, under 65s will not be able to transfer money from a stocks and shares ISA to a cash ISA anymore. The government is closing that route. They're anticipating people might try and get around the limit by moving invested money into cash instead. Transfers between cash ISAs will still be allowed, so if you want to switch to a better rate with a different provider, you can still do that. Thirdly, HMRC will also introduce a charge on interest earned on cash held inside a stocks and shares ISA for under 65s, specifically to prevent people parking large sums of cash in an investment wrapper to get around the new cash ISA limit. Now, the legislative status. These changes were announced in the autumn budget in November 2025 and confirmed in the HMRC's TaxFreeSavings newsletter edition 19. I'm treating this as confirmed government policy, but as with anything that hasn't yet fully passed into law, it's worth keeping an eye on the finance bill progress. I'll link the relevant HMRC guidance in the description. So why is the government doing this? Chancellor Rachel Reeves has been pretty open about it. The argument is that tens of billions of pounds a year flow into cash ISAs, earn modest interest, and just sit there. And the government believes that the money would do more for savers and the wider UK economy if it were invested. She cited a comparison in her budget speech. Someone who had invested £1,000 a year in global stock funds through a stocks and shares ISA since April 1999 would have ended up with around £92,000. The same contributions in an average cash ISA, just over £36,000. That's a gap of more than £56,000. And that's based on verified AJ Bell research, not a government estimate. To be clear though, that is about past performance. It tells us what happened, not necessarily what will happen in the future. Markets go down as well as up, and that's genuinely important. But the direction of that gap over that kind of time horizon is very difficult to argue with. I don't think this is as straightforward as the government is making out, and I don't think they're completely wrong either. The FSCS, or the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, protects your cash savings up to £120,000 per person per institution. That protection is really meaningful. If a bank fails, your money is covered up to that limit. Worth knowing, if you're thinking about a stocks and shares ISA instead, the protection works differently there. Investments are covered under a separate FSCS scheme up to £85,000 per firm rather than £120,000. It's still protection, but it's a different type and a different limit. For people who are close to a major goal, buying a house, retiring in the next few years, funding a child's education, holding some money in cash makes complete sense. You don't want market volatility wiping out 10% of a deposit you need in 8 months. Cash is predictable, investments aren't, especially over the short term. There's also the psychological side. I've spoken to a lot of people who simply can't stomach watching their money go up and down on a screen. And a 4.78% cash ISA right now is genuinely competitive compared to where rates were not too long ago. But there's another side to this. Over the long term, and I mean 10, 15, 20 plus years, cash savings have consistently fallen behind both inflation and investment returns. You saw the numbers a moment ago. I'm 41, targeting financial independence by 55. Keeping everything in cash over a 14-year horizon would cost me in both returns and purchasing power. That's my situation. Yours might be different. Martin Lewis, probably the most trusted voice on personal finance in the UK, was initially pretty blunt about the change. When it was first floated in 2025, he called it a mistake and said it was more likely to piss people off than nudge them into investing. He did soften slightly after the budget confirmed £12,000 as the new limit, acknowledging that for many people, that's still a meaningful allowance. The Treasury Select Committee also pushed back on the government. There is genuine disagreement about whether this nudge will work the way Reeves intends. My take, for savers who genuinely need cash, short-term goals, low risk tolerance, or older savers drawing down, the cash ISA is the right tool. The government cutting it doesn't change that. What it does do is force a conversation that a lot of people have been avoiding. To be clear, I'm not a financial advisor and your situation is different from mine. If you're unsure about any of this, please talk to a qualified financial advisor. There are free services available, including through Money Helper, which is the government-backed guidance service. I'll put the link in the description. But here's how I'm thinking about it, and take from that what's useful to you. This tax year is the last one where under 65s can put the full £20,000 into a cash ISA. If you've been meaning to open one or top one up, and you have the funds available, this is the year to pay attention to that. The deadline is 5th of April 2027. Tax year end has a way of sneaking up on you though, so I wouldn't leave it until the last week of March. If you're already using a stocks and shares ISA and not touching cash ISAs, this change affects you very little. The overall £20,000 allowance stays the same. If you're someone who uses the full $20,000 as cash savings each year and you're under 65, from April 2027, you'll need to think about where that extra £8,000 goes. It can't just go into cash. Whether a stocks and shares ISA makes sense for that portion of your money depends on your timeline, your risk tolerance, and your goals. That's a question worth sitting with. And if you're over 65 or will be before April 2027, this largely doesn't touch you. The carve-out for older savers was clearly deliberate. It implicitly acknowledges that cash makes more sense the closer you are to needing your money. Here's the thing about a change like this. It feels like it's about rules and bureaucracy, but what it's really about is the government taking a view on how you should be managing your money. Whether that sits right with you or not, the practical reality is the same. The rules are changing, and this tax year is the last one at the current limit. I'll link in the description to the HMRC Tax-Free Savings newsletter where this is confirmed, and to Money Helper if you want free guidance on any of this. If this was useful, please do give it a like. It genuinely helps more people find it, and this is exactly the kind of thing that's easy to miss until the deadline has already passed. If you're new here and any of this has raised questions, there's a video on how stocks and shares ISAs actually work that might be worth a watch next. I'll stick it in the end card. I'll see you in the next one.